Let's talk about the invisible problem that no one talks about in artificial intelligence and nobody explains. Today's topic is why people don't trust artificial intelligence. And guess what? My name is Mario Leone, and this is the Voices of Victory channel, and I'm going to tell you right now, here's the deal. I've been in technology for over 26 years. I've taught for 2 major universities as a contract in terms of multimedia, design, programming, all of the above. Outside of that, I've been using technology since 1976. I was writing code as a little boy in 1976. Here's what I'm going to tell you today. When people use technology, they expect a clear cause and effect, and they want an understanding of that. When they press a button, they want a predictable result, and they expect that. When they don't understand how the system thinks, they start to get very uneasy and they lose trust in that system. That being said, what this does is it creates incongruous behavior. Let me put it in a human form first. So what a human being does and what a human being says is 2 different things. Congruous behavior is what you do and what you say matches. That same mechanism for human beings also applies to AI. And this is creating an issue with human beings in a cognitive way, in simple terms. Because what the machine does and the output that you get, what you put in and what you get out, doesn't match. If it doesn't match, there's an issue. It creates that same mistrust that human beings create. And that is how human beings are wired. Because human beings look for intention and cause behind something. The reason why people don't trust certain systems is there isn't enough transparency. And it starts with the terms and agreements of the artificial intelligence companies. And I know this because I study contract law. This is the hidden fear that no one talks about. It's the hidden fear inside AI development that no one wants to talk about. Developers fear losing control over systems that they cannot fully predict themselves. They fear building tools that behave in the best possible way most of the time, but then fail in rare, high-impact ways because they're not looking at the bigger picture. Because a lot of people are using AI to develop AI. So we have to look at the fear. We have to pay attention to that. Because developers fear that users will trust the system too much without understanding its limits. That's going on. That's actually happening. There's this constant push-pull in the AI design world where the power of the big organizations and the uncertainty actually happens at the same time, but no one could realize terms and conditions should be straight up transparent and creating a system that's based on transparency. So it's really straightforward. I mean, we are patterns. It's not that we have patterns. We are patterns, and AI simply emulates that. It emulates all patterns. It can tell us about the emotional patterns, but it can't feel like we can. That's where we draw the line. It's obvious, right? Most developers say, oh, of course. Well, of course, this is why. But here's the thing. There's a big blank space here. We got hesitation, we got fear, and it all creates a ton of pressure. So a lot of developers, they fear that data bias because they know very well the system reflects the world as it is, not as people wish it to be. That's why the biggest superpower in self-development, forget about computer development, self-development is becoming objective. Okay? Because we are falling into the ethical aspect as well. Now, if you don't know this about me, I have a background in ethics. I'm certified in ethics as it relates to AI. Okay? And there is an ethical failure, all right? Because people are making these tiny little design choices and trying to scale it. Everybody wants to scale. They have a scale boner because they want to scale it into larger areas, but then there's a social consequence somewhere along the line. So they fear that public backlash because one little visible mistake can completely destroy trust. But everybody has forgotten the principle and concept of transparency of information in technology. You want adoption, start baking in transparency. And when we look at psychology as it relates to development, it's called negativity bias. where every human being somehow, some way will remember something harmful because it connects to some kind of memory, some kind of surprise failure that the system put out. And that surprise is somehow more consistent than the actual success that the system gives. So one little AI failure and no one will let the system down. No one. And we all come to the conclusion that AI is not perfect because humanity isn't perfect. Of course, human beings aren't perfect. We are imperfect, creating imperfect systems. So people don't trust that to begin with. People are hypercritical. The default mode network of their own brain has that inner critic and inner judge. It's what happens. So one little mistake and everything good AI that AI has done got wiped out. Now let's go a little deeper and we'll wrap it up here. A lot of developers, they look at how complex and difficult things are and they hide it. They hide it to make the system more simple and smooth because they know that on the surface, people will not see it. But we're living in the age where you cannot hide anymore. People will unpack your code and they will see the real deal. There will be people that will find a way. It will come to the surface. And those developers, they expose too much of the difficult stuff. And they overwhelm the user without any development of trust or transparency. There's no you go to these AI systems, there's no onboarding. Some people say, oh, well, why do I have to gate it that way? Or why do I have to block it that way? You should. Get people to understand your system. I'm not saying to gate it and stop people from coming in, but have people understand what they're getting themselves into. It's real straightforward. And some developers are trying to balance both by adding the explanations that are simple and, of course, very honest and straightforward. Every approach has a trade-off, and none of the trade-offs are 100% fully safe. And right down to the emotional core of humanity, we have to get down to real business. That developers are not just building tools. Let's get that very clear. They are molding and designing systems that people may trust more than their own judgment, not realizing how things came to a conclusion. And developers are bringing that responsibility forward faster than society is capable or even ready to process on an emotional level. That's why AI feels both powerful and, of course, guess what? Uncomfortable, a whole boatload of discomfort at the same damn time. I think the writing is on the wall in 2026, I really do. You gotta look at it this way, why humans don't trust what doesn't behave the same way twice in a row. You gotta think about it that way. When we trust each other as human beings, trust is not an idea. I want to make this so clear to all the human beings listening, if you're a developer. Trust is not an idea. Trust is gained through action. It's a value, and action is important. You can't just say, I'm trustworthy. You've got to be able to provide some kind of evidence. Because what evidence does is it not only reinforces your own identity, but it reinforces the identity of other people. It helps other people trust you. Humans trust the very patterns that are consistent over time. But it's not just that. It's how things pan out and come to conclusions. They trust behavior that matches past behavior in similar situations. And human trust is when they look at a system and it's designed to be predictable, that they understand its predictability. Even when stuff gets crazy, they still understand how it came down to that. So when behavior is an inconsistent idea, when you have a friend that you just met and you're trying to gain trust with them and they're inconsistent with that, their behavior is inconsistent, your brain starts slapping up 1,000 red flags saying this guy is unsafe, this person is unsafe. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go further because it's all about congruous behavior. And when incongruous behavior is there, they don't trust it. When the actions don't match expectations, the brain starts looking for all kinds of meaning inside the skull. And when something starts to shift, something starts to change, something starts to alter without an explanation, the very trust will start to go downhill, and that becomes a pitfall and a slippery slope. It's called incongruent behavior. Okay? We have to look at what we expect, because what we expect, if it doesn't match what we observe, this creates the brain's uncomfortability. The red flags rise. Because the human mind, it needs to rely very heavily on pattern recognition. That's why I say it's not that we have patterns, it's that we are patterns. And even though these systems are designed with the same patterns, people are missing the boat in development. That's how I'm going to put it down. When behavior is consistent all the time and it's stable, people begin to chill out. Their nervous system starts to relax. When the behavior is totally inconsistent, incongruous behavior, people start throwing up the red flags. It's red alert, danger, Will Robinson. That's what's going on. So when you're expecting somebody to, let's say, take care of a pet in your house and the behavior feels really random, you will have a second thought. You may not trust that person. People stop trusting at that point. Okay, this is not a preference. This is not an emotional preference. This is like literally how you're wired, your amygdala, the brainstem, okay? The amygdala, the fight or flight starts going skyrocketing with red flags. And people wonder why. Why isn't AI being accepted? No shit. Take a look around. Take a look around at what's going on. Now, if we connect this to AI, we now understand that, it's input, output, just like computers. And the AI system, it takes the input and it puts it together. It does its best to structure it with the tokens and everything. Okay, it does its deal. Now, the systems produce an output that could actually be completely unexpected from what you thought it was, or completely disconnected or so far removed from what your human reasoning actually is. So the systems, they give a different result for similar prompts depending on the context. Of course it comes down to good prompting. I get it. I understand. You're talking about a person who did a lot of prompting for quality assurance in the field. Okay, rubrics and measurements that I've used to actually measure the way things were done across 1,000 people. Okay, now that being said, the trust completely melts down like a bad Snickers bar on the curb of Arizona, because human beings are not just judging the output. They're not just judging the result. They're judging the connection and relationship between input, output, that black box, and what's transparent and what's not. They're looking at how the performance behaves. Even if the output is awesome, even if it's technically correct, if it doesn't feel right, even when the answer is accurate, if they don't know how it came to that conclusion, it's a problem. So I understand that the systems are designed for flexibility, they're designed for consistency, but when you try to do all that, there's going to be this emotional uncomfortability around power and trust. And that's where the misunderstanding is going down. They like consistency. And the AI is built on probabilistic principles and ideas. Very important. Probabilistic behavior. And some of the rules are not very fixed at the end of the day. So when we see this incongruous behavior, this mismatch, people stop trusting, because this is part of human psychology, okay? And we're going to have inconsistency. It's going to happen. And when you take inconsistency and a lack of transparency, that makes you travel with your boat out into the ocean of uncertainty, where you're going to just drown out there. And you don't feel comfortable. The boat keeps rocking. Your nerves are on edge constantly. People do not only distrust what is actually wrong, but they stop trusting when they know for a fact that they're seeing patterns that are completely inconsistent. And when artificial intelligence feels inconsistent and people start responding to that, then they start to question. And they don't question the developers. They question the system as a whole. And that's where people may not realize. And I think it's important for us to walk away with it today, understanding that people need to accept that AI is not as solid as a human. It is a system. It is a literally system. Data sets all the way. And it is a system that can change its answers based on the context. So people will not trust AI just by expecting it to respond the same way as a human would, or the same way every single time. They will trust it when it's honest about its limits, becomes transparent in terms of its delivery, and we actually understand how it actually works. So when people stop expecting humans to be so certain with something that is not human, then the fear starts to go down and the real understanding goes up. And guess what? When the real understanding goes up, adoption goes up. When transparency goes up, adoption goes up. Just remember that. And that's all I'm going to say on this episode. I am done here. Put a fork in it. I'm finished. Don't forget to click on the Patreon below so you can support this channel. We could grow together. Have a good day.